everyone. My name is Michael. Welcome to my video study series on famous people of the Bible. And my mission in this series is to get everyone to understand that all of the all of the people in the Bible, except for Jesus Christ Himself, were just ordinary people that became extraordinary through their association with Jehovah God. Other than that, people of the Bible, the famous people of the Bible that we regard with such um, um, esteem were really ordinary people that had their own their flaws. They had their character flaws. And so my mission is to get folks to understand that they became extraordinary through the association with the Lord. And so today's video segment is segment number 6 on our study of Moses. So go ahead and click on the like and subscribe button if you like what I am saying as far as our study of Moses is concerned. So I am going to begin where I left off in segment number 5 of Moses, an extraordinary, ordinary man. And where we left off was really at the burning bush. So Moses was tending sheep on the backside of the desert near Mount Sinai, and he was out tending sheep. You got to remember that Moses was out in the desert for 40 years. And so he was in employment. He was an employee of his father in law, Jethro, because he was tending Jethro's sheep. And so he noticed that this bush was burning and it did not extinguish at all. It was just, it was constantly burning and it was pretty bright. Now, Moses, I'm sure he's seen some brush fires before in the desert, but this one was a little different. There was a flame, but it did not extinguish. So, when he went to investigate, the Lord knew that he got Moses' full attention. Also, it must be remembered that in the Bible it does state that there is an angel within the bush causing the bush to glow brightly. And so when the Lord has attained Moses' attention, he called out to Moses by calling his name twice. Moses, Moses. There have been different instances in the Bible in which a person's name has been repeated twice by the Lord. One of those people was Abraham, and Abraham heard the name of the Lord twice. And when he called out his name, that was during the time in which he was about to sacrifice to the Lord his son Isaac. And the Lord prevented Abraham from killing his son Isaac at that time by calling his name out twice. Another occasion is when Samuel heard the voice of the Lord call his name twice, and Samuel thought he was asleep. He was in a deep sleep at the time. And so he went to Eli. He was staying with the high priest Eli at the time. He was being trained by Eli. And so Eli told him, you know, I did not call you. Go back to sleep. And if you hear the voice of the Lord again, answer, I am here, Lord. And this gives us an indication or a mini lesson on what we should do when the Lord calls your name out twice. Not two occasions, but he repeats your name twice. You are to respond, I am here, Lord. And then, of course, he called Jacob's name twice. And so at this time, Moses heard his name being called twice, and so the Lord got his attention. and then he directed Moses to take off his sandals because this was regarded as holy ground. Now, what you got to understand is Moses' feet were um, dirty, and along with his sandals. That's not what the that was not the point the Lord was trying to make. What the Lord was trying to tell Moses was that he was in the presence of a holy being, Jehovah God Himself. Okay, and this was a significant happening in his life. Okay, so it wasn't about his sandals or his feet. It was about the fact that he was in the presence of a holy being. And so Moses did take off his sandals, of course, and he had to be trembling uh, because number one, he was looking at a bright light coming from a bush, and number two, he was probably hearing a very booming voice with a lot of energy and intensity coming from that bush, calling his name, Moses, Moses. It was probably like a loud clap of thunder, for lack of a better word, booming from that bush. So he was probably shaking and afraid. At least I would be, to be honest with you. And so um, I don't think Moses was primarily focused on every word the Lord was saying because the Lord gave him commission. He said, basically, I am here to call you to come and to deliver your people out of Egypt. It is time. And so he didn't say that, and the Lord did not say that in that exact language in the Bible, but that's pretty much what the Lord was telling Moses. And Moses was probably was focusing on the intensity of the voice of the Lord and the intensity of the light coming from the burning bush. And so he was probably preoccupied with that rather than every word that was being said to him from the Lord. And so Moses, you got to remember that Moses at one time was a very prominent figure in Egyptian society. He was a prince. He was being groomed to be the next pharaoh. So he was a warrior. He was a warrior prince, and the Bible scholars indicate that he had won some battles uh, in the army of Egypt, and he was, and the Bible does indicate that Moses was very um, accomplished in his speech and his actions. So Moses was very prideful at the time. He was at the pinnacle of his power. He was thinking that he was going to be the one to deliver the um, the people out of Egypt himself. And so when he killed or murdered the Egyptian taskmaster, uh, he figured the Hebrews would follow him to simply leave Egypt without help from the Lord. He was going to do it. And he didn't understand at that time that that's not what the Lord wanted him to do. And so at that point, when he murdered the Egyptian taskmaster, Pharaoh found out about it. And I'm sure Moses understood that this was treason, an act of treason, and he escaped in the desert into the land of Midian. And he began his 40-year exile from the land of Egypt as a shepherd, working his father in law's flocks of sheep. So at this time, by the fact that Moses was out in the desert for those 40 years, he entered what I call the desert school, or what I call a desert experience, where the Lord breaks you. And when the Lord breaks you from your prideful arrogance, He molds you into what He wants you to be. because you are no longer a prideful and arrogant person as Moses was, and now he's a broken man, and now the Lord can mold you and use you the way he wants you to do. But first, he had to build up the confidence of Moses. You got to remember that Moses was 80 years old at this time, and he'd been out in that desert, in the backside of the desert, tending his father-in-law's sheep for 40 years. He was content with what he was doing. He just wanted to live out his days in the desert um, as a shepherd for his father-in-law. He was done. It's what we call being institutionalized. When you're in a vocation for a long period of time and you follow a certain routine and you accept things the way you are in your life, it's called being institutionalized. A lot of people are like that. You have doctors and lawyers and teachers and coaches. This is all they know. They're content in what they do. This is what they want to do. They want to live out their lives in their vocation or their profession. And this is what Moses wanted to do. He didn't want to, and he felt that he didn't have the energy or the desire to be a deliverer of his people out of Egypt. So he began giving the Lord excuses. Now he heard the Lord say to him that he wanted him to be a deliverer. He didn't really focus on what the Lord really meant. What the Lord meant was he was going to use Moses as an instrument to deliver the people out of Egypt, not be the sole deliverer. And so Moses began to issue a series of excuses to the Lord. And so he said to the Lord, well, you know, I don't know who you are, and who is it that I tell the people who sent me? And the Lord indicated, I am that I am. That's who's sending you. And so Moses said, well, here I am, this broken down 80-year-old man. I'm going to walk in the court of Pharaoh with these rags and this staff. People aren't going to believe me. They're going to think I'm some silly old man. And so the Lord says, you know something? Let me give you an indication of my power. Okay? Throw your staff down on the sand, and which Moses did. And when he threw his staff down on the sand, his staff became a serpent, and Moses jumped back, which I would have done too, because you got this staff, and now it's this big serpent. And so the Lord said, grab the serpent by the tail. Okay? And so he grabbed the serpent by the tail. I would be scared to death. All right? He grabbed the serpent by the tail, and the serpent became his staff again. Then he told Moses, second miracle, put your hand into your bosom, in which he did. Take your hand out, and the hand uh, had leprosy. Okay? It was deformed with leprosy. And so that was the most dreaded disease in the ancient world at that time because there was no um, cure for it. And so um, he told Moses, okay, put your hand back into your bosom. And which he did. He put his hand back into his bosom and he took it out again, and his hand was normal. So he was trying to tell Moses, I got your back. This is the way I'm going to help you. Did that convince Moses? No. You got to remember, Moses was a broken man. He had no confidence. Okay? And so Moses came up with a third excuse. He says to the Lord, well, you know, I don't speak very well. Uh, I'm slow of speech, so I don't speak very well. And so what Moses did not know that the Lord has already spoken to his brother Aaron and directed Aaron to come and meet Moses in the desert. And so the Lord told Moses, look, my own words will come through thy mouth, and you can speak to the people using my own words. And I am going to send your brother. I am sending your brother to meet you, and your brother will become the interpreter. My words will come to you, your words will come to your brother Aaron, and Aaron will interpret what you have to say. At that point, Moses knew that he was fighting a battle that he could not win. So he just said, okay, I'm just going to go to my father in law and I'm going to ask him for permission to leave. So Moses approaches father in law Jethro and he says to Jethro, look, I want to, can I go? You got to remember Jethro was his employer. So it was formality, it was proper etiquette and formality to go ask your employer for some time off, just like we do today. And so he asked Jethro for some time off. He says to Jethro, I need to go and see my brethren, check on my brethren in Egypt. Can I do that? Because I haven't seen them for a while. And Jethro, probably through the influence of the Lord, the Holy Spirit just said, I mean, he didn't fight it, he just said, okay, shalom, which means go in peace. Okay? And so he did that. And so notice that Moses, when he said, I need to leave and go to Egypt to check on my brethren, he did not say exactly what the Lord told him to do. He sort of gave Jethro a half truth. He didn't truthfully tell Jethro everything the Lord told him to say. And at that point, one could wonder why the Lord did not punish him for not giving him the full truth. And this gives you an indication that Moses was not truly 100% convinced that the of of what the Lord wanted him to do, because he just sort of gave Jethro a half truth. He didn't tell Jethro what the Lord exactly what the Lord told him that he is to do. He just said, I need to go check on my brethren. Okay? So it was a little twisted there. But anyway, the Lord, for whatever reason, you don't question the Lord, did not smite thee or punish him for not giving him the full truth in confidence of what the Lord wanted him to do. But anyway, Jethro gave him his permission and he left. He took his staff. Now remember, his staff, and it states this in the Bible, the staff was no longer Moses' staff. It was the staff of the Lord because miracles were imparted in that staff. And now his staff was known as the staff of God. And so he took his staff and he walked toward Egypt. On the way to Egypt, Moses ran into his brother Aaron. And then Moses related everything that Aaron said that happened to him in the desert. So finally, they got to Egypt. And once in Egypt, Moses and Aaron assembled all the elders uh, in the of Israel, and Aaron spoke the words the Lord had spoken to Moses. Okay, and then Moses performed some signs in front of the people, and the people believed that Moses was sent by the Lord in his commission to deliver the people from the land of Egypt. Okay, so Moses and Aaron were granted a audience with Pharaoh. Now you got to understand that Pharaoh was regarded as a god. He was the most powerful ruler in the world at that time. there were many gods in Egypt, but uh, Moses, Pharaoh was regarded as a god among his people. And when Pharaoh opened his mouth and commanded something, that command became a decree, and that decree became law. Okay? And so that's what happened. So here's what the Lord told Moses to tell Aaron, to tell Pharaoh: let my people go, that they should celebrate a feast to me in the wilderness for 3 days. It's very interesting that the Lord did not indicate to Pharaoh that he wanted his people to leave on a permanent basis. He just simply said a feast for 3 days. And why would the Lord do this? Instead of just saying, okay, you let my people go out of Egypt, bye, see you. Why was it a request, a demand to allow his people to leave for 3 days rather than permanently? Because he wanted us to understand how petty Pharaoh was. And he wanted to pull Pharaoh's string a little bit, to sort of push his buttons a little bit. So he hardened his heart, and Pharaoh says, who is the Lord that I should obey his voice? I'm a God here. So why should I obey some God that I've never heard of? I'm the God of this land. He didn't say it in those terms, but that's pretty much what that was pretty much his um, his thoughts at the time. And so he spoke his thoughts to Moses. And then he questioned the God of Moses. And so Pharaoh got kind of testy. And he said, you know something? If you and your people want to go and uh, hang out in the wilderness at a feast for 3 days, I think you people need something to do. You people are lazy. So what he told Moses was, uh, no, I'm sorry, what he told his taskmasters, he indicated to his taskmasters that he wanted his taskmasters to tell the foremen, which were the Hebrew trustees. And you got to remember, there were some foremen that were also Hebrews, and they were supervising the slaves. So his taskmasters, he directed his taskmasters to tell the foreman that you will build your bricks without straw. Since you people are so lazy and you need some things to do, you gather up all the stubble you can and you build your bricks without straw. And so that was his demand, and that was his decree, and that was law in Egypt at the time. And so at that point, the taskmasters found that uh, this was an impossible task. And so the taskmasters were beating the Hebrew foreman. And the foreman cried out, went and sought an audience with Pharaoh and cried out to Pharaoh, look, this is not fair. Uh, it's the people's fault, not ours. We're not the ones that are trying to build these bricks. Why are we being beaten? And so Pharaoh repeated his demands. His heart was hardened, and he repeated his demands. And this is the way it was. And so at the same time, you got to understand that the people of the Hebrew people went to approach Moses and told Moses, look what you did. You're not helping us. Now we have to build bricks without straw. We had it better before you came over here and messed things up. And so Moses cried out to the Lord, Lord, people are worse off than they were. Pharaoh's not believing a word that I am saying. What shall I do? And so the Lord told Moses, this is what I want you to do. Um, I want you to approach Pharaoh the next day, and I want Aaron to throw his staff down in front of Pharaoh. And he did. Aaron did. And his staff, Aaron's staff became a serpent. And so Pharaoh thought to himself, well, that's nothing. I'm going to call my sorcerers and my magicians. And they did the same thing. Consequently, they did the same thing. They threw their staffs down, and through dark satanic power and black magic, those staffs became serpents also. But the Lord's serpent ate up all, devoured all the serpents of the sorcerers and magicians. And then Aaron grabbed the serpent, and the serpent became a staff again. Okay, and so um, the Pharaoh, did it change his heart? No, it remained the same. And so the next morning, Pharaoh um, was bathing, and so Aaron and Moses appeared to Pharaoh while he was bathing, and they repeated the same demand: "Let my people go." Not please let my people go. Let my people go. And so Pharaoh refused as normal because his heart was hardened by the Lord. So he refused to let the people go. And so Aaron took his staff and smite the water, or hit the water with his staff, and the water changed to blood. Let me pause. There are 10 plagues that were going to occur by the Lord. Let's understand something. The first 3 plagues were initiated by Aaron, not Moses. Moses sort of stood on the sideline as far as the plagues are concerned. It was Aaron that was initiating everything. Notice that it was Aaron that threw his staff down in front of Pharaoh, and the staff became a serpent. And for some reason, no one really knows, but for some reason, the first 3 plagues were initiated by Aaron, not Moses. And no one truly knows why. Moses just sort of witnessed this, just sort of stood on the sideline and interpret to Aaron what the Lord wanted. And Aaron was the one that initiated the plagues, the first 3 plagues. So the water changed to blood for 7 days, including the water that was in jars and vessels all across, not only in the Nile, but in jars that were storage containers with water in it. That changed to blood. And this happened all across Egypt, including the Hebrew people. And this occurred for 7 days. There was no water. So imagine how the fish began to die out, and everything stank for 7 days. Okay? And so imagine not bathing for 7 days. So you and your neighbor and the members of your family are not bathing for 7 days. Some of you teenagers don't bathe for 7 days. So anyway, let me not get off task here. So everything stank. You had that foul fish smell for 7 days. No one drank anything for 7 days. Imagine that. How did this affect Pharaoh? Pharaoh just turned around and he just went into his palace. And the Bible actually says this, that Pharaoh just turned around and walked in his palace. And he made that any mind. He didn't pay that any mind. Whatever. Okay? You got to understand that the Egyptians used the Nile for bathing and cooking, and the fish was the main staple in the diet of the Egyptians at that time. They used that as the main protein source for their meals, and there was no cleaning, there was no laundry, there was no drinking for 7 days. But did that change the heart of Pharaoh? No, it didn't. So the Lord the Lord told Moses to approach Pharaoh again, which he did. He said, go to Pharaoh, go to him, and says, thus say the Lord, let my people go. For if you refuse, I will allow frogs to appear across the land. And so, the second plague, initiated by Aaron. Aaron stretched out his hand across the waters, probably at the banks of the Nile, and frogs appeared throughout the land of Egypt and Goshen. Yes, the Hebrew people had to endure this too. Frogs everywhere. Imagine you can't eat, you can't sleep because frogs are jumping all over you. How are you going to lay down to eat, to sleep? How are you going to lay down to sleep? How are you going to eat at your table when frogs are jumping all about you for all this time? And the frogs began, and the Bible states that the frogs began to die, and the air smelled of dead frogs, and people piled the frogs into dead heaps. Imagine the stench of dead frogs all over the place. And after this plague, did it change the mind of Pharaoh? No, it did not. Okay. So then the Lord told um, Moses to tell Aaron to stretch out his staff and strike the dust of the earth. Let me pause here. If you would notice in the Bible that every third plague comes without warning. What I'm trying to say, every third plague comes without advance warning. The Bible just tells Moses and Aaron what to do and it's done. Doesn't tell Pharaoh, Pharaoh, if you don't do this, this is going to happen. Not on each of the third plague, every third plague. Okay? So, the third plague, Moses and Aaron do not tell Pharaoh if then. They don't say that. If this is going to happen, then this is going to happen. They didn't tell them that. The Lord just told Aaron and Moses what to do, and it's done. Every third plague. Why is this? The Bible does not indicate why this happened. But every third plague comes without warning. The Lord just instructs Moses and Aaron what to do, and it's done. So he instructed Aaron, third plague, this is Aaron, he initiated this plague also. Stretch out his staff, strike the dust of the earth, that it may become gnats or lice. The Bible doesn't truly indicate distinguish whether it was gnats or lice, but in the land, and the dust became biting lice. Okay, and so the lice was truly annoying the people of Egypt and the people of Goshen. Also, they were being inflicted by the lice. Okay, and at this time in the Bible, the magicians give their last statement in the Bible, and this is what they said: "This must be the finger of the Lord. This must be the finger of God." Because they didn't say anything else after this, as far as the magicians are concerned. But did Pharaoh's heart change? No. So, after this third plague with the lice or the gnats, the Lord commanded that And he actually states this in the Bible. He commanded that the 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 plagues will no longer affect the people of Israel. They will no longer suffer any more plagues. Only the Egyptians will be affected by these plagues. And so that's what happened. So the Hebrews in Goshen no longer suffered with the Egyptians. So Moses was commanded to confront Pharaoh the next morning, to go to the bank of the Nile, to go at the bank of the Nile. And Moses commanded, let thy people go. And Pharaoh refused. And so there came great swarms of flies uh, to inhabit the land of Egypt and Egypt only. And so did um, Pharaoh relent? No, his heart remained hardened. And so the Lord told Moses to announce that if to Pharaoh, if he didn't let his people go, there's going to be another plague. And this plague is regards the livestock of Egypt. All the livestock of Egypt shall die if you don't repent and allow my people to leave Egypt. Pharaoh refused. So the next day, all the livestock in Egypt started to die off. That means there was no red meat and there was no milk because the plague affected donkeys and horses and cattle and camels and goats and sheep. They all died off. This was the plague of pestilence. Okay? And so, did Pharaoh have a change of heart? No. His heart remained hardened. And so, Moses appeared and Aaron appeared to Pharaoh again, and they took some soot from a kiln, and they approached Pharaoh, and Moses threw the soot up in the air, and as the particles of soot began to fall, the Egyptian people, their skin began to be filled with boils on their skin, and these boils were very painful, and they they were very tight, and so if you move your skin a certain way, they will erupt and pus will come out. Okay, and they had to contend with the pus and the pain of boils. I mean, you couldn't sleep, you couldn't rest because you were always in pain for those boils, those sores breaking out. And not only happened to the people, but also the beasts in Egypt and only Egypt that this occurred because the Egyptians, the Hebrews no longer suffered with the Egyptians. Did Pharaoh change his heart? No. And so the Lord said to Moses, stretch out your hand toward the sky, and that hail may fall on the land of Egypt, and on the beasts and every plant in the field throughout the land of Egypt. And so there was hail and fire mingled. There was hail and fire that mingled with the hail, and it just on the land of Egypt. And then we get an indication that Pharaoh started to crack. Okay, and so Pharaoh summoned uh, Moses and Aaron to his throne room, and he said to Moses, I have sinned, and the Lord is the righteous one, and my people are wicked. Make the thunder and hail stop, and I will let your people go. And so the Lord did as requested. He asked the Lord to stop this plague from occurring, but Pharaoh lied, and his heart darkened once again, And so he refused to let the people go. And so the Lord said to Moses, stretch your hand out over the land of Egypt, and the locusts may come and devour every plant in the land of Egypt. Not Goshen, but in the land of Egypt. Okay. And so what happened? The locusts came and swarmed, huge, massive swarms, probably so massive that it seemed like it was darkening the skies of Egypt. And the locusts devoured every plant in the land of Egypt. And did Pharaoh change his mind? No. And so you had the ninth plague. And remember, every third plague, there was no advance announcement made. And in this plague, the Lord just simply did not announce to Pharaoh. He did not give a if and then statement. He just simply told Moses what to do, and it just happened. So Moses did not give Pharaoh an advance warning that this plague was happening. It was the plague of the ninth plague, which was the plague of darkness. Okay, and so Moses stretched out his hand toward the sky, and there was a thick darkness throughout the land for 3 days. Imagine. It was so dark you couldn't see your hand in front of your face. You can almost cut the darkness with a knife. It was so dark. There was no light that could be extinguished, that can be ignited from a fire. Uh, so there was no light from fire. There was no light from daylight. There was no light from the moon. Nothing for 3 days, and people were stumbling around in the dark for 3 days, stumbling, feeling around. And don't forget the beast, the wild beasts and livestock in the land of Egypt also were blinded. So they were walking around aimlessly, um, walking around, feeling, and people were feeling around in total blindness, except for the land of Goshen. There was light there in that district where the Hebrew slaves lived. They had their life went on as normal. Okay, and so with this plague of darkness, as you can see, we are dark now. I am going to leave you, and we are going to continue our video series, segment number 7. We're going to begin with the Passover. We're going to explore the elements leading up and involving the Passover, which was the 10th plague, involves the 10th plague in our next video segment, number 7 of our study of Moses. So with that, I'd like to thank you wholeheartedly. I'd like to thank you for your time this time. Until next time, don't forget to subscribe, like and subscribe. We will be seeing you. And thank you for this time.